There's a question you were never supposed to ask. Not in school, not in church, not in politics. And if you do ask it, you're labeled, silenced, buried in shame. But here it is anyway. Who's really running the system? We were told America is the superpower, that it leads the world, that we're free. And it feels that way, doesn't it? We've got skyscrapers, smartphones, space programs, freedom of speech. We vote, we post, we choose. But if we're so free, why are we afraid to speak the truth? If we're so powerful, why do we send billions overseas while our own people can't afford to live? If we're in charge, why does one nation always stand above the law, above the criticism, above the silence? Why does one nation receive unquestioned loyalty, no matter the cost? That nation is Israel. And the moment you question that, the labels come. The fear comes. The censorship begins. They tell you it's about religion, that it's sacred, that to speak against it is to speak against God. But what about the truth? What about the innocent? What about the suffering buried beneath the silence? This isn't hatred. This isn't conspiracy. This is truth that was never meant to be seen. The kind of truth that's gotten people banned, silenced, or worse. But here you are, still listening. So if something in you is stirring right now, don't wait until the end. Share this with one person who still has ears to hear. Someone who's been feeling like the world isn't what it seems. Someone who's been aching to wake up. Because what you're about to hear might just be the last truth they ever need to see. And when you're ready to go deeper, subscribe to see just how far this rabbit hole really goes. This is Reuben's AI revolution. And this is the red pill. They say Israel is small, but its influence echoes in every chamber of American power. With just 9 million citizens, it receives more U.S. aid than any other country on Earth, over $150 billion in total. And in 2016, a new record, a $38 billion military package. No repayment, no conditions, just open-ended support, even as U.S. cities crumble and veterans sleep on sidewalks. Why? Because the alliance between Israel and America is not just political. It's systemic, baked into our intelligence, our tech sectors, our defense contracts. Companies like NSO Group, the creators of Pegasus spyware, don't just work with Israel. They were born out of it. But here's the part they never put on the news. In 2013, Edward Snowden revealed a classified agreement between America's NSA and Israel's unit, 8200, an elite cyber intelligence agency. What did it reveal? That the NSA gave Israel unfettered access to raw, unredacted intelligence on American citizens. Emails, phone calls, personal files. No warrants, no oversight. Just pipelines of private data handed to a foreign nation. Even Congress didn't know. And when pressed for answers, no one gave them. This isn't some fringe conspiracy. This is declassified history. And it doesn't stop at surveillance. Israeli defense companies now partner with U.S. police departments, offering facial recognition tech, drone surveillance, and AI behavioral tracking. You thought it was all American-made? Think again. The Iron Dome of influence stretches far beyond the Middle East. It hovers silently over Silicon Valley. It whispers inside classified Pentagon rooms. It walks through Congress, wearing bipartisan armor. And every time a bill is passed to send more money, more weapons, more blind loyalty. The media spins it as support for democracy. But who decided that democracy meant submission? This is not a war of nations. This is a war of systems, of surveillance, of silence, of unbreakable allegiance, forged behind closed doors. And if we don't name it, it owns us. They say Israel was born in 1948, but the blueprints go back far deeper, not in sand, but in signatures, declarations, deals made in the shadows. In 1897, the first Zionist Congress was held in Basel, Switzerland. Its goal? To establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine, even though the land was already inhabited, even though it belonged to another people. The world was silent. The plan had begun. Fast forward to 1917, the British Empire, occupying Palestine, issued the Balfour Declaration, a letter promising to create a national home for the Jewish people. But it wasn't theirs to give, and it wasn't empty. Nearly 700,000 Arabs already lived there. No one asked them. No one needed to. Then came World War II, the Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history. And after the smoke cleared, the Western world saw an opportunity to soothe its guilt by building a nation. But not in Europe, where the crimes occurred. In Palestine, where the innocent would pay for them. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition the land. One half for the Jews, one half for the Arabs. But even that wasn't equal. Jewish militias had already armed themselves, already trained, already prepared. And in 1948, the British withdrew. The State of Israel was declared. And within hours, war. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced. Not by accident, by strategy. Entire villages were emptied, families erased. The world calls it the War of Independence, but Palestinians remember it as the Nakba, the catastrophe. This isn't opinion, it's documented. Read the words of David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister. Were I an Arab, I would have risen in rebellion. Even he knew. The foundation wasn't freedom, it was force. And when resistance rose, so did the retaliation. In 1946, the militant Zionist group Irgun bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people, British officers, Arab workers, and civilians. It was one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in the region's history. But today, there's a plaque, a celebration, because the winners write the names. The victims are forgotten. This is not anti-Semitism. This is historical record. To tell the truth is not to hate. It is to unmask. And yet, the myth still spreads that Israel was a land without a people, for a people without a land. But history says otherwise. The land had people, homes, fruit trees, poets, children, and now, over 70 years later, that displacement still echoes in checkpoints, in walls, in airstrikes, in neighborhoods where the native language is now called foreign, where the people who stayed are labeled terrorist just for remembering. If its birth required erasure, then so will its survival. That's the cost of a throne built on silence. And what does this have to do with America? Everything. Because the system that created Israel is the same one that now funds it, protects it, defends it, at any cost. No questions, no accountability. We're not called to hate. We're called to see clearly. because you can't understand the present until you tell the truth about the beginning. They say alliances are built on trust, but some are built on thrones. Israel didn't rise alone. It was crowned. In 1947, the world voted UN Resolution 181, a partition plan dividing Palestinian land into two states, one for the Arab majority, one for the Jewish minority. They never asked the people who lived there. They just drew the lines and called it destiny. The next year, 1948, Israel declared independence, and within minutes, U.S. President Harry Truman made it official. The first nation on earth to recognize the new state was America. Why the rush? Because this wasn't just politics. It was prophecy to them. But behind the curtain, it wasn't angels that opened the gates. It was the Balfour Declaration, a 1917 British promise to give Jewish settlers a homeland on land the British didn't own. A promise made not to God, but to the Rothschild banking dynasty. History records it, but churches never preach it. And once Israel rose, America never let it fall. Since 1948, the U.S. has vetoed over 45 UN resolutions condemning Israel. No matter what's on the table, civilian deaths, illegal settlements, human rights violations, the answer stays the same. Not Israel. This is not democracy. It's discipleship. Today, the alliance runs deeper than most Americans realize. It's not just shared values. It's shared surveillance. Unit 8200, Israel's elite cyber intelligence force, regularly collaborates with the NSA. Edward Snowden's leaks revealed a pipeline of raw U.S. citizen data, handed straight to Israel. No redactions, no oversight. Even Congress didn't know. This isn't fiction. It's declassified. And while you work 9 to 5, they build empires from policy and prayer. A strange union of lobbyists, bankers, weapons, and theology, and they called it God's will. Christian Zionism now dominates U.S. foreign policy, not because of love, but because of leverage. And every time another aid package is signed, billions in weapons, no strings attached, it isn't just support, it's submission, a spiritual contract with a nation instead of with God. So what do we call this? An alliance? Or a throne built by men, but mistaken for heaven? Look it up. Balfour Declaration. Resolution 181. Truman's immediate recognition. Snowden's leak on Unit 8200. The Rothschild letters. It's all public record. They just hope you never read it. They called it divine destiny. The idea that the modern state of Israel was the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, and that to question it was to question God himself. It didn't start in Congress. It started in pulpits, in televangelist broadcasts, in mass market sermons, broadcast across millions of American homes. In 1970, evangelical leader Hal Lindsey published The Late Great Planet Earth. It became the best-selling nonfiction book of the decade. Its core message, that the rebirth of Israel in 1948 was the ultimate sign of the end times, and that any nation who opposed Israel would be cursed. That book was just the beginning. By the 1980s, Christian Zionism had become a political weapon. Organizations like Christians United for Israel, QUFI, founded by Pastor John Hagee, mobilized millions of believers to vote, donate, and advocate, not for peace, but for unconditional loyalty to Israel. And the result? a generation of American Christians who were taught that supporting Israel's government, no matter what it did, was not just patriotic, but holy. So when questions arose about settlements, about human rights violations, about surveillance and suppression, those questions weren't just dismissed, they were demonized. To question Israel was to betray God, and the silence grew. Media outlets avoided criticism for fear of backlash. Politicians competed to show stronger allegiance, and spiritual leaders stayed quiet, afraid of being labeled anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, or worse, unfaithful. But here's the deeper truth. The God of the Bible never endorsed systems. He judged them. He never asked for blind allegiance. He demanded justice, mercy, and humility. Yet today, justice is traded for politics. Mercy is silenced by algorithms, and humility is mocked by PR campaigns. In 2018, the U.S. Embassy was moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, a controversial and symbolic move, celebrated by religious leaders as a prophetic victory. But while the crowd cheered, dozens of unarmed Palestinian protesters were shot and killed at the Gaza border the same day. Not one major Christian leader condemned it. This is the power of the holy narrative. It shields policies in Scripture. It wraps war in prophecy. It turns public silence into spiritual obedience. But God never asked for silence. He asked for truth. And if the church won't speak it, then someone else must. They thought The Matrix was fiction, a sci-fi fantasy for silver screens. But it's not made of code. It's made of compliance. It doesn't plug into your neck. It scrolls beneath your thumb. We're already inside it, and most people have no idea. Because this version doesn't hunt your body. It hunts your mind. It feeds you tailored news, filtered friends, curated outrage, and all of it engineered to make you feel informed while keeping you obedient. In 2022, Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen leaked internal reports confirming what many feared, that Facebook knowingly amplified hate, division, and fear, because those emotions kept you on the screen longer, and longer screen time meant more ad money. The algorithm chose rage because rage was profitable. That wasn't a glitch. That was the business model. And it didn't stop there, because when the TikTok algorithm began rising, it didn't just copy Facebook. It perfected the system. Studies showed it could detect your mood based on how long you watched a video, down to the millisecond. It adapted, it evolved, and it delivered content to feed your fear, lust, or loneliness before you even knew you were feeling it. That's not entertainment. That's emotional engineering. And where did the system learn this? From the data you gave it. Every tap, every pause, every heartbeat through your smartwatch fed into a hive mind that knows more about your soul than your pastor does. But what about YouTube, Google, Amazon? YouTube suppresses dissenting voices with algorithmic shadow bans, silencing creators, not with handcuffs, but with invisibility. Google's search results are no longer ranked by truth, but by who paid more to bury it. And Amazon, they collect your data, sell you products, monitor your voice through Alexa, then sell those behavioral patterns to third parties, including government contractors. And all the while, the illusion of choice remains. You think you're free because you can post, but try saying something the system doesn't like, and watch how fast your reach disappears. They called it innovation, but it's infiltration. The Matrix isn't a machine. It's a mirror, showing us what we've become. Addicted, distracted, divided, until silence feels like death, until scrolling feels like prayer, until dopamine becomes doctrine. This is not just a digital system, it's a spiritual one, because the algorithm is now your preacher, your timeline, your truth, your likes, your liturgy, and your emotions. The offering. But here's the part they don't want you to say out loud. The algorithm doesn't want your mind. It wants your worship. Because when a lie is fed to you 1,000 times a day, with music, with humor, with beauty, you stop calling it a lie. You call it normal. And the more normal it becomes, the harder it is to leave. But if you're still listening, you were never normal. You were called to break the system, not blend into it. So, share this message. Whisper it into the feed. Let the machine know. We see it. We name it. And we refuse to bow. Because the first step out of the Matrix is realizing who profits from it. And the second, refusing to worship it. They say we're free, but freedom today looks a lot like tracking, feels a lot like farming, because in the eyes of the system, you're not the heart of the story. You're the product. Your attention is the currency. Your emotion is the data, and your body is the asset being indexed, scored, and sold. We used to be citizens. Now we're profiles. The harvesters don't wear robes. They wear logos. BlackRock, Vanguard, Palantir. They don't build temples. They build infrastructures to measure your movements, predict your desires, and manipulate your soul before you know what it craves. They say AI is the future. But who trained it? Who owns the code that listens closer than God, but never weeps, never loves, never forgives? They built systems to count your steps, track your face, watch your eyes, gauge your tone, measure your heart rate, and sell it back to you. Because the new cattle are not on farms. They're online. And the slaughterhouse is invisible. They don't need chains. They have algorithms. They don't need whips. They use dopamine. Your cage is made of convenience, and we're being herded by systems too smooth to feel violent, too elegant to trigger alarm, too predictive to question. So I'll ask you plainly, are we the heart of this story, or just the cattle that powers the machine? Because if we are the heart, then we must beat. We must remember. We must rebel against systems that flatten the soul and call it progress. You are not a data point. You are not a wallet. You are not a barcode. You are not a pawn in someone else's game. You are sacred. And sacred things cannot be scanned. Sacred things cannot be sold. Sacred things cannot be farmed. They'll tell you this is just about borders, just about bombs and rockets, just another Middle Eastern dispute that doesn't concern you. But what if that was the greatest lie of all? Because behind the rubble and headlines lies a blueprint, one that's been exported, replicated, and scaled to silence nations. This isn't just about Gaza. It's about the normalization of surveillance, the redefinition of freedom, and the quiet death of dissent, one country at a time. America didn't just fund Israel's weapons. It absorbed Israel's systems. From predictive policing in Chicago, to biometric checkpoints in India, to AI border surveillance between the US and Mexico, the same technologies once tested in occupied territories are now being deployed in cities around the world. And guess who helped build it? Google, Microsoft, Amazon. These aren't just tech companies. They're arms of the new intelligence empire. In 2020, Microsoft partnered with AnyVision, an Israeli facial recognition firm accused of mass surveillance in the West Bank. They claimed it was ethical AI, but pulled out quietly once the backlash came. No apology, no accountability, just a new project under a different name. And while we scroll past headlines, Unit 8, 200 veterans flood Silicon Valley, designing the very platforms that now decide what you see, what you hear, what you believe. This isn't fiction. This is a digital occupation of the human soul. And it's not just Israel. It's the alliances forged behind closed doors, the classified deals no one voted for, the pipelines of data that flow from your phone to foreign intelligence agencies without your consent. This is why dissent disappears, why journalists vanish, why entire narratives get scrubbed from the internet as if they never happened. Because the system doesn't just monitor you, it modifies you. And if you think your country is immune, look again. France, Canada, Germany, Brazil, Nigeria, Japan, all adopting tools built from the same war-tested playbook. Control the data, control the people, call it peace. This affects the whole world because it was never about war. It was about governance. Not who drops the bomb, but who programs the algorithm. And if you're still breathing free, it's not because the system hasn't reached you. It's because you haven't resisted yet. So what now? Now you speak. Now you share. Now you see. Because silence is how systems win. But truth is how empires fall. They've made it feel like there's nothing we can do. Like we're just watchers, scrolling through the collapse, liking the truth, but never living it, reposting resistance, while still obeying the algorithm. But make no mistake, the war is not just with weapons. It's with worship. Attention is obedience in the age of the feed. And silence is surrender. You think you're just watching? No, you're participating. Every scroll, every view, every unspoken word feeds a system that profits from your passivity. So, what can we do? First, unplug from their spell. Reclaim your mind from the matrix of distraction. Let your convictions cost you comfort. Let your silence become sound. Second, don't just see the truth. Speak it. Share it. Let your voice ripple through the algorithm like a holy glitch, because they fear what can't be controlled. A soul that's awakened and refuses to stay quiet. Third, live different, because when your life becomes the sermon, they can't shadow ban that. And finally, know this: if you feel alone in the truth, you're not. There's a remnant rising across the earth, not bought, not broken, not bowing. You want to do something? Then start by not staying silent. Share this message. Let the system know. We still have breath. We still have fire. We still choose truth. They gave us gods made of metal and systems with no soul. They told us salvation was synthetic and silence just a software glitch. But deep down, you know better. Not because someone told you, but because something sacred still lives inside you. Call it spirit, call it energy, call it God. But you know it's real. You felt it in the stillness between questions, in the moments the algorithm can't touch, And maybe you've wandered. Maybe you've traded depth for distraction. But something in you is waking up. Something ancient. That doesn't speak in updates. It speaks in whispers. You weren't born to be data. You weren't made to be managed. You were crafted in mystery and destined for meaning. This isn't about religion. It's about remembering that there is a power no empire can counterfeit, a presence no machine can simulate, and a truth no system can silence. So if this hit you, if your soul stirred while the world kept scrolling, then you're not alone. This is a revolution of remembrance, of fire over formula, of presence over platform, of spirit over simulation. Welcome to the resistance. So now you know. The system was never neutral. The silence was never empty. And the soul was never for sale. This is your invitation to wake up, to rise up, and to tune your spirit to a frequency they can't cancel. Subscribe to Reuben's AI Revolution. Take the red pill, and let's go deeper down this rabbit hole, because the future is louder than you think, but the whisper still wins.